So it's been an interesting way to basically include a lot of people, even
Yeah.
though our initial intention was to focus on underrepresentation and
Hmm.
just certain things not being recognized in terms of looking at psychological concepts and practices without paying attention to the social constructs.
Yeah, it's interesting how something that clicked in my head was this. It's like this thought of how um, people from the African descent in North America pushing for their civil liberties and their rights has kind of opened the way for other minorities to also, kind of shed the light on them as well. So
Hmm.
it's like people of African descent paved the way for them to kind of um, find their own route to representation, for getting their own rights as well, and so on. And it's also like when you were saying like different categories within people of African descent, for example, Muslims and there's obviously other categories. These are all like sub factors that are also major because within each one you can find a lot of like a web of intricate details that also play into how their psychology works and you know just the mental state they can be in.
Hmm.
So, but something that would probably make it a bit clearer going forward in this podcast is if we can understand maybe three major struggles within the Black people face in Canada that is common amongst all Black people. Maybe we can start from there to like kind of set the agenda going forward.
Sure, what a great question. Well, I think one thing that's I'm going to borrow a little bit from Dr. Tama Bryant.
Hmm.
She's a very established American Black psychologist, previous president of the American Psychological Association. And she said, Black people cannot out excellence racism. And that's
Okay,
an interesting
that's
reminder for me because I work with so many professionals who are so capable and they still deal with all kinds of oppression, even if it's kind of quiet, low key. So I think that that piece about never being able to outperform, out excellence racism is an interesting one.
hmm
Another one is, and I would say that this is especially for Black men, but to some extent also for Black women. All of
yeah,
these stereotypes around being aggressive, being criminal, being just problematic and bad. That's another one
yeah,
that's terrible. And of course, people who know Black people know they're just like everybody else.
hmm
And had it not been for white supremacy, well, skin color probably would be just as important as height or eye color. It'd be inconsequential.
mm
Third one, which is probably not talked about as much, but the impact of living in a world where even before you open your mouth, even before somebody knows anything about you, they may jump to a bunch of conclusions just because of your skin color. And so
yeah,
this is something that even little kids are experiencing. And of course, it continues all throughout life. And for me, I've come to an interesting conclusion. And of course, I recognize I have lots and lots of privileges. But I also recognize that because I've had my own company since 2012, for the most part, the people who I interact with want to interact with me.
hmm
So,
okay,
generally speaking, I'm treated pretty well in a lot of environments. And that is a very different reality from so many people who work in workplaces where they contribute a lot, but somehow people don't necessarily like them. So it reminds me of a rap song about how sometimes people like what you make, but they don't like you.